There are some sentences that split your life into before and after. For Diep, that sentence came at 9:43 on a Thursday night. Your mother is alive. 5 words. That's all it took. And in the silence that followed, sitting at her kitchen table with the phone on speaker, Diep's entire world rearranged itself. Because for 20 years she'd been living in the after. After her mother disappeared, after everyone said she was dead, after Diep learned to build a life around that empty space. But now there's a before again, before she knows what happens next, before she decides if she wants to meet this woman, before she understands why her mother left and never came back. The hardest part isn't the knowing, it's what comes after the knowing. Stay with me. Let me tell you what happens after you hear the words, "Your mother is alive." You don't cry right away. You don't scream or fall to your knees or any of the dramatic things you see in movies. You just stop. Everything stops. Diep sits at that kitchen table with the phone in front of her, and for a moment, she can't hear anything except the blood rushing in her ears. James's mother is still talking. Diep can see her mouth moving in her mind, can hear sounds coming through the speaker, but the words aren't connecting. James reaches over and takes her hand. That small touch brings her back. "Say that again," Diep whispers. James's mother's voice comes through clearer now. "I found someone who worked with her at the factory, an older woman named Mrs. Lon. She remembered your mother clearly, and she said your mother is still alive." "Where?" "Still in Hatay. Mrs. Lon sees her sometimes at the market." Diep's hand goes to her mouth. James leans closer to the phone. "Mom, are you certain? This Mrs. Lon is sure it's the same person? I showed her the photograph." She recognized her immediately, said they worked side by side for 3 years. Diep finds her voice. Did she say why my mother never came back?" There's a pause on the other end. Mrs. Lon didn't know all the details, but she said something happened, something that made your mother feel like she couldn't return. She wouldn't say what exactly. "Can I talk to her? Can I talk to Mrs. Lon?" "I can arrange that. But Diep, there's something else you should know." Diep's stomach tightens. "What?" "I asked Mrs. Lon if your mother knows about you, if she knows you're looking for her. And she said your mother talks about you sometimes, about her daughter. Mrs. Lon said she carries guilt about it, about leaving." Diep closes her eyes. Her mother thinks about her. After 20 years, she still thinks about her. Does she know I'm married? That I have Nye? I don't know. I didn't tell Mrs. Lon anything about you. I wanted to talk to you first. James squeezes Diep's hand. "Mom, what do you think we should do?" "That's not my decision to make. That's Diep's." They all go quiet. Diep can hear someone in the background on James's mother's end. Voices, a door closing. "I need time," Diep says finally. "I need to think." "Of course. I'm staying here 2 more days. After that, I'll come home and we can talk more." "Okay." Diep? "Yes. I know this is overwhelming, but I want you to know, whatever you decide, we'll support you." After the call ends, Diep and James sit in the quiet kitchen. The clock on the wall says it's nearly 10. Nai's been asleep for over an hour. The dog is snoring softly from her room. Everything looks the same as it did an hour ago. But nothing is the same. "Talk to me," James says. Diep shakes her head. "I don't know what to say. I don't know what to feel. That's okay." "Is it? Because I just found out my mother is alive and I don't feel anything. Is that normal?" "I think you're in shock." Diep stands up and walks to the window. Outside, the street is empty. A single streetlight flickers. "For 20 years I've wondered," she says. "Every birthday, every holiday. I'd think, where is she? Is she alive somewhere? Does she think about me?" She turns back to James, and now I know. She's alive. She's in Hatay. She thinks about me, and I feel angry. That makes sense. Does it? Because I also feel relieved and scared and confused. I feel everything and nothing all at once. James comes to stand beside her. "You don't have to make any decisions tonight." "But I have to make them eventually." "Eventually. Not tonight." Diep leans against him. "What if I go there and she's not what I hoped? What if she has some terrible reason for leaving and it makes everything worse? Then at least you'll know. Is knowing better than wondering?" "I think so, but that's just me." They stand at the window together watching the empty street. After a while, Diep speaks again. "I keep thinking about Nai. What do I tell her? Your grandmother, who I said was dead, is actually alive?" "We don't have to tell her anything yet." "But what if I decide to go to Hatay? What if I decide to meet her? Then we'll figure out what to say when we get there." Diep pulls away and looks at him. "You keep saying we. This is my mother. My decision. I know. But you're not doing this alone. Whatever you decide, I'm here." Diep feels something crack open in her chest. Not breaking. Opening. She's been holding herself so carefully since the phone call, keeping everything tight and controlled. But now, standing in her kitchen with James, she lets herself feel it. Her mother is alive. Her mother is alive and has been alive this whole time. The tears come fast. Not sad tears exactly, just everything tears. James holds her while she cries. When she finally stops, her face is wet and her eyes hurt, but she feels steadier somehow. "I want to meet her," Diep says. "Are you sure?" "No, but I need to anyway." James nods. "When?" "I don't know what, soon. Before I lose my nerve." That night. Diep can't sleep. She lies in bed staring at the ceiling while James breathes steadily beside her. Her mind won't stop moving. She imagines the meeting 100 different ways. Her mother crying, her mother angry, her mother indifferent. She imagines what she'll say, what questions she'll ask. Why did you leave? Why didn't you come back? Did you ever try to find me? She imagines Nai meeting her grandmother for the first time. And then she imagines the worst possibility of all, that she'll go to Hatay and her mother won't want to see her. Around 3 a.m, Diep gives up on sleep. She goes to the kitchen and makes tea. The photograph James's mother left is still on the counter. Diep picks it up and studies it in the dim light. The woman in the photo is young, probably younger than Diep is now. And somewhere in Hatay, that woman is older, 20 years older. Does she still have that careful smile? Does she still stand the same way? Diep will find out soon. Because despite the fear, despite the anger, despite everything, she needs to know. Friday morning, Diep wakes up with a decision already made. She's going to Hatay. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Before her courage runs out, James is already up making breakfast when she comes into the kitchen. "You didn't sleep," he says. "Neither did you." He pours her tea. "Have you thought about what you want to do?" "I want to go there, to Hatay. I want to meet her." James nods like he was expecting this. "When?" "After Tet. When your mother comes back, we'll talk to her. Get Mrs. Lan's contact information. And then, I'll go. We'll go." Diep looks at him. "You don't have to come. I know. But I'm coming anyway." Nee wanders out, rubbing her eyes. She climbs into her chair, and James sets rice porridge in front of her. "Are we doing anything fun today?" she asks. Diep and James exchange a look. "Maybe we go to the park." Diep says, "Would you like that?" Nye nods enthusiastically. And just like that, they slip back into normal breakfast, getting dressed. Nye chattering about nothing important while the dog circles hoping for dropped food. But underneath the normal, Diep's mind is already in Hatay. That afternoon, while Nye naps, Diep does something she hasn't done in years. She goes to the small wooden box where she keeps old photographs. Most of them are from after she married James. Their wedding, Nye as a baby, family gatherings. But at the very bottom, wrapped in cloth, are 3 photographs from before. Her as a child, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And in 2 of them, there's a woman beside her. Diep's hands shake as she unwraps them. Her mother. She hasn't looked at these in so long. After everyone said her mother was dead, looking at them hurt too much. But now she studies every detail. Her mother's face is clearer in these than in the one James's mother brought. Younger, smiling. One hand resting on young Diep's shoulder. Diep traces the image with her finger. This woman is alive. Somewhere in Hatay right now, this woman is alive. James finds her like that, sitting on the floor with old photographs spread around her. He sits down beside her without saying anything. "I forgot what she looked like," Diep says quietly. "I thought I remembered, but I'd forgotten the details. She looks like you." "You think so?" "Around the eyes and the mouth. Nye has it too." Diep looks at the photograph again. He's right. There is a resemblance. "I'm scared," she admits. "I know. What if I go there and she doesn't want to see me? What if she has a whole new life and I'm just a reminder of something painful?" "Then at least you tried. At least you know." Diep gathers the photographs carefully. "I need to tell Nye something. I can't just disappear for a few days without explaining." "What will you say?" "I don't know yet. The truth. I guess. In a way she can understand." That evening, after dinner, Diep sits down with Nye. "Can we talk about something?" Nai looks up from her drawing. Am I in trouble? No, baby. Nothing like that. I need to tell you something important. Ni puts down her crayon and gives Diep her full attention. Diep takes a breath. You know how you've never met my mother? Your other grandmother? Because she died. Nai says matter-of-factly, well, we thought she died, but it turns out she might be alive. In a town called Ha Te. Nai's eyes go wide. Really? Really? And after Tet, Daddy and I might go there to meet her? Can I come? Not this time, sweetheart. This time it's just for adults. But if things go well, maybe you can meet her later. Nai processes this. Is she nice? I don't know. I haven't seen her since I was young like you. Why did she go away? And there it is. The question Diep doesn't have an answer to. I don't know that either. That's one of the things I want to ask her. Nai thinks about this seriously. Then she says, if you find her, will you tell her about me? Of course. Tell her I'm good at drawing, and I can count to 100. Diep's throat tightens. I will. I'll tell her all about you. Mocha! Nai seems satisfied with this and goes back to her drawing. But Diep sits there for a moment longer, watching her daughter color in a picture of a house with flowers around it. This is what's at stake. Not just Diep's past, but Nai's future. If this goes well, Nai gains a grandmother. If it goes badly, Diep shakes her head. She can't think like that. 2 days later, James's mother returns from Ha Te. She comes directly to their house, and the three of them sit at the kitchen table while Nai plays in the other room. Tell me everything, Diep says. James's mother pulls out a piece of paper with a phone number written on it. This is Mrs. Lan's number. I told her you might call. She's expecting to hear from you. Diep takes the paper with shaking hands. What else did you find out? Not much more than I told you on the phone. Your mother goes by the same name. She lives in a small house on the east side of town. She works at the market sometimes, selling vegetables. Did you see her? In person? James's mother hesitates. I saw someone I think might be her. From a distance, but I didn't approach. I thought that should be your choice. Diep nods. Thank you for respecting that. There's one more thing, James's mother says carefully. Mrs. Lan mentioned that your mother lives alone, no husband, no other children. It's just her. Diep absorbs this information. Her mother has been alone all this time. No family, no other daughter to replace the one she left behind. That should make Diep feel something. Relief maybe, or sadness. But mostly she just feels tired. When will you go? James's mother asks. After Tet, maybe the 5th or 6th. I need a few days to prepare. Prepare for what? I don't know. My heart, I guess. James's mother reaches across the table and takes Diep's hand. Whatever you find there, whatever happens, you're doing the right thing. Am I? Yes, because not knowing is its own kind of suffering, and you deserve to be free of that. After James's mother leaves, Diep sits alone with the phone number. 10 digits. That's all that stands between her and her mother now. She could call right now, could hear her mother's voice, but she's not ready for that yet. So instead, she folds the paper carefully and puts it in her pocket. And she starts counting down the days until Tet is over. Until she gets on a bus to Hate. Until she stands face to face with the woman who left her 20 years ago. Here's what I keep thinking about. Some answers don't make things easier. Sometimes knowing the truth just trades one kind of pain for another. But Diep is choosing to find out anyway. Not because she's fearless, but because she's tired of living in the space between knowing and not knowing. That takes a different kind of courage. The courage to say, "Show me the truth, all of it, even the parts that hurt."